decided to get into fighting games this week. We took our last week.
Oh, you finally decided to start playing fighting games.
Finally decided to get into fighting games.
Are fighting games good?
Well, we got into one that was a single player fighting game.
You were just talking about Devil May Cry 5 SE.
Yeah. But this one is actually a single player fighting game, though. Because we got into Red Earth, aka Warzard.
Oh,
Do you know anything? What the fuck you know about Warzard, Pat?
I'll tell you what I know about Warzard. You ready? There's a lion man in it.
Yeah.
That was in Capcom Fighting Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is it is the only other fighting game Capcom made on the CPS3 board.
It is not.
It
That's
is
not true. It is the first game Capcom made on the CPS3 board.
Oh, go to hell.
The other game besides Third Strike and the Street Fighter 3 series was JoJo. Heritage for the Future is
Heritage for the
CPS3.
Future's on CPS3?
Mm-hmm. Totally was.
Weird.
So, they made 3 games on this board, and then the board itself committed Sudoku and ended forever because they're
This game looks like trash.
Red Earth, dude, is a weird piece of fighting game history, and we went down that road to find out what was going on. What they were going for is it was the first game on the system, and they essentially were trying to create a sort of new version of Street Fighter 1. So there's 4 characters, and you pick them, and you can play against each other, but you have super bare bones, like, choices where you basically have these 4 characters to fight each other with, including excluding mirror matches, and they have like 1 or 2 moves, 1 or 2 supers, and that's about it. Really bare bones. But then when you play single player and you continue, the adventure mode has all these other bosses that are not playable. And they go into a story mode. There's little cutscenes before and after each fight. During the fight, you collect spells, you level up, you collect money and experience. And in between fights, you unlock moves. And you unlock specials and abilities that like you just didn't have. So you can get your character all the way up to level 32 with a humongous move list where they have like shit on every single quarter circle input, shit on every single DP input, and a bunch of other specials. So like it's this crazy thing where they put all the work into this single player progression and wanted it to be like Street Fighter 1. I don't know why they thought
Why
would
you ever make a game based off Street Fighter 1?
Yeah, I don't know why they thought that would be a super great idea, but that's what Red Earth did. And it makes sense why it ends. Like, that when you know that that's what they were going for, then you kind of go like, okay, now I can see how this plays out. What's sad is, of course, that like this was clear to no one at the time in 1996, and everyone was just confused by it. So you just kind of played for a bit and went, all right, well, let's play the other thing, because Street Fighter 3 is right over there, But the sprites were gorgeous. The characters are incredible. Art Eater on Twitter, shoutouts, has a really cool thread that he posted where they're comparing the Virgin Strider Hiryu to the Chad Mukuro, or Kenji, the ninja from Red Earth, who's so much sicker. He's crazy well animated. The smoothness in him and his scarf and every little thing he does looks wonderful. And the game has fatalities in it, so he has a move where he fucking rips your goddamn heart out. There's like all these little details, all these little added little details that go into the game that just make it look really, really gorgeous. Tessa, the witch who showed up in SVC Chaos, has some really baggy, bouncy clothes, and like you see how like the weight of that movement affects like everything she does. And one of her buttons, her like roundhouse kick, is just her summoning like a dove that like flies out at you. And
I'm watching a long play right this. I'm skipping through it as you're talking, and I'm seeing a lot of the characters you're describing, and a lot of these bosses that I know you can't play as because I've never seen them ever.
exactly.
And they're immaculately well animated. Like there's a robot that has like a lance that has interlocking like spinning parts.
There's like a
And all I can
flexile
think-
sentry.
Like, yeah, that guy looks nuts.
Mhm.
And all I can think of is if I had played this game for any length of time, only to discover that none of these characters are playable, I would have put it down and just went to something else, like by default.
So so here's where you get the fact that years later, right? So we end up seeing Leo as a guest character in Capcom Fighting Jam, aka Capcom Fighting Evolution. We also see Tessa in SVC Chaos and in Pocket Fighter. And then Capcom Fighting Jam also lets you play as Hauser, the T-Rex, and Newell, the fish thing, right? The squid, exactly. So they made the bosses playable in that game, but nowhere else. And then you kind of just look at it and go, it sucks, but like if they ever really wanted to, they could have made a second version of this game using the existing sprites to just make a real fighter with all the bosses playable, and then you would at least have a 12-character fighter. You know?
With a really weird roster too. Like these guys are weirdos.
It'd be a bunch of monsters, but like whatever, right? Like that's what's wrong with a monster fighter. Look at Darkstalkers.
Like, even a bunch of them have like these super immaculate like transform animations that I can't. Like,
yeah,
on,
they
guys.
could have. They clearly look like bosses compared to the 4 heroic heroes that you play as. But I think people would have played and still liked it, you know. And it's one of those things where you're like, man, you already did the art. You know, the sprites exist. It's just such a shame that like, yeah, CPS3 died.
So fucking baffling and stupid.
And really, a Red Earth 2, Warzards, as I called it, would have been the perfect way to get a whole new franchise that people would love.
I'm pretty sure I can confirm that there's no Red Earth 2 on the horizon for Capcom.
It would have been...
By the horizon, I mean ever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bunch of sprites sitting there that could have been used to basically put a game together, but it never happened. But when you think about it, like they've thrown out like more work than that. I mean, Capcom Fighting All-Stars represents an entire 3D fighting game that was thrown out.
Oh, I don't think there's anything that compares to the like almost mythical Resident Evil 2 development, where they junked a 90% complete game to start the entire thing over without any assets being reused.
Final Fight 7th Son, I believe, was
that just completed and then canceled?
Then they turned it into Streetwise. It just became something else entirely. They canceled that and they rebuilt it from the ground up as Streetwise. But like, yeah, that was a whole other game. They've not. They're no strangers to throwing all the work out, you know. So it's a bit weird because sometimes you'll see them
do that anymore though.
No, but like in the years when sprite recycling was a thing, you know, and in the years when they were like, yeah, fuck it, we drew Ingrid, just shove her in this game, shove Ingrid into Alpha 3. Why not? We did the work. Mackie and Yun, we did the work. Shove them into Alpha 3.
Just remove, this frame and this frame so it hits the animation budget on the character, and you do it. There, it's done.
CVS2 characters showing up, you know, like they did the fucking thing. So yeah, I feel like in that era, it would have been really cool to just get a weird monster fighter and you know, sit in the background. And anyway, so that was an interesting little trip memory lane. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, remember, man, like the Capcom is still, like the second best collection of characters next to Nintendo. That's a cool ass lion man. It's a cool witch. It's a cool little like little monkey lady, and a cool little fucking ninja. And yeah, you never have to see them again. But they should throw that shit in the trash.
And you won't. You will never see them again. Christ, you'll never even see them again on your own channel.
I bet you Tessa will show up in some fan service form, because she seems to be the fave of the old roster. No one really gives Lion-O too much play. But
wait, is that his name?
No, it's Leo, but it might as well be Lion-O. Like, fuck off.
His name is Leo.
It's like,
really?
it's Lion. Let's call him Lion-O. Shut up.
Oh no.
Yeah. I would not be surprised. And in fact, like, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure they have Teppen cards. I think they have Teppen cards.
Well, Wooly, I mean, there's a Teppen card of you and I at
yeah,
this point.
No,
like,
I believe they do. But
I'm waiting for the Teppen card for the valve handle from RE2 at this point.
There you go.
Like,
but they absolutely have been playing Tessa more than the others, a bit like the Morrigan of sorts. So yeah, Red Earth 2 Warzards. Let them know you want it. Let them know you want it. Oh boy.
Don't do that. Don't talk about that.
It's also super weird because, like, there's multiple endings, and the better you play, the worse your ending gets. So
What?
if you play, like, when you play as, we played as Kenji, and when you beat it, like, there's a couple of choices. So when you play, you see your shogun and your subordinates betraying you. As they talk to you, they're like, they're bullshitting you. And then at the end, it asks, they set you up for a trap, and the game asks you, do you trust him? Yes or no? And if you say no, then you get then you go to back to the fucking whatever the place, and then yeah, you get this series of endings where, depending on whether you had more than 20 continues or less than 20 continues, you either see you go back, and then they're like, "Mwahaha, he doesn't know, he's a fool. We'll dispose of him yet." And then you continue to work for them, even though you know that you're being used, and you're just depressed ninja forever. Or you go in and then you kill them, but then knowing that you have no honor because you killed them, you kill yourself. And then there's a third, even more like non-ending of just like, he didn't know anything, so he just continued doing his missions. And it's just like, what, like, getting closer to the truth leads to the worst outcome ever, where you just fucking off yourself, and you're like, what?
Oh, it's like real life.
Shit's grim. So anyway, Red Earth, good times. That should be dropping.
I'm talking about Red Earth right now
on the channel. Well, there had to come a time. There had to come a time in your life when Warzard was going to be discussed. You evaded it for all these years, but you can evade it no longer.
It's like the last time I talked about Red Earth was when we were playing Capcom Fighting Evolution. And I went, what's this dumb dinosaur? And he went, well, you see, Pat, that's from Red Earth. I'm like, I don't care, dumb.
Well, now everybody knows about Warzard. And they're not going to stop thinking about the name Warzard, because it's called Warzard.